Tuesday, June 20th meeting is 10 o'clock straight up. Payson, how you guys doing? Why don't you give us a sound test real quick so Sam can see if she can hear you, okay?
Can you hear me okay?
Try it again.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, try it once again.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Still muffled. What do you think, Cassie?
Can you hear me now?
Is that any better, Sam? Is it?
It sounds echoed, but it'll be okay.
Okay. We'll give it a try. So if something happens, just tell me. All right. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And since we have Jason Whiting here, Navajo County Supervisor, he'll lead us in the pledge. And Pastor Richie is in Payson. He'll give the invocation. Thank you, Jason. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are we set? There we go. Good morning, Pastor Richie.
Good morning.
Should be able to hear you.
I can't hear what's being said.
Oh, you're good if you want to go ahead and the invocation.
Okay. All right. Let's pray together. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we humbly bow before you today. We seek your presence and your leading and your wisdom in this meeting today. We pray that you will bless our county supervisors with your wisdom and grace. We pray that you'll watch over them, guide them, protect them, bless their families. We pray for all of our county workers, our sheriff's office, our sheriff's deputies, our sheriff and county workers in the jail systems, for all the county workers who work on the road systems or in the offices. We just pray that you will watch over them and bless them, provide for their needs, Lord. Continue to make this county one of the best counties to live in, a place where families can dwell in safety and in peace. Once again, we pray for your wisdom and guidance on this meeting today. In the name of Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll get on with number 2 presentations. 2A, presentation by the Arizona Auditor General's Office regarding Gila County's fiscal year 2022 financial and single audit results and findings. And we have Melanie Chesney, Don Bohart, and Daniel Hunt. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning, Chairman Klein and members of the board. I am Melanie Chesney, the Deputy Auditor General and Acting Financial Audit Division Director. Thank you for inviting our office to join your regular meeting today to present our audit results and findings for Gila County. Joining me from our office are Don Bohart, one of my financial audit managers, and Dan Hunt, our financial audit senior for this audit. Before we discuss the county's audits, I think it's helpful to provide a little background on the Arizona Auditor General. The office is a legislative agency made up of nonpartisan staff. Although we are accountable to all 90 legislative members, we report directly to the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, which is a bipartisan group of 10 members, 5 appointed by the Senate President and 5 members appointed by the Speaker of the House. We are an independent source of impartial information concerning state and local government entities and programs. We provide specific recommendations to improve the operations and programs of state and local governments, including Gila County. We are well versed in and follow several standards including governmental auditing standards. These standards were created by the United States Comptroller General and outlined several requirements for things like audit reports, professional qualifications for auditors, auditor ethics, independence, objectivity, professional judgment, audit evidence, and an audit organization's quality control. All auditors of federal, state, and local governments use these same standards to perform audits and produce reports. Our presentation today is in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes 11-661D, which directs the county board to require its auditors, the office, to present audit results and any findings to the board in a regular meeting without the use of a consent agenda within 90 days of the audit's completion. This is a great opportunity for us, your auditors, to be in front of you to provide information about our work and to answer any questions you have. Today we will be discussing our work on 3 required annual reports: the county's annual financial report, report on internal control and on compliance, and the federal single audit report. As we have done in the past, we sent you an email when your annual reports were completed. We sent each of you links to these reports in emails dated March 31st, 2023 for the annual financial report, and May 18th, 2023 for the report on internal control and on compliance and federal single audit report, which were issued together. The first report, the county's annual financial report, presents the county's annual financial statements and our opinion as to whether the county's financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in conformity with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. It's wonderful to report that for fiscal year 2022, we reported an unmodified or clean opinion, which means the county's financial statements are reliable. The second report, the report on internal control and on compliance, which is included in the single audit report, is where we report any findings and recommendations resulting from our audit of the county's financial statements. The report on internal control and on compliance is where we reported 5 findings we found during our financial statement audit that Don will be discussing in a little bit. Finally, the third and final report, the federal single audit report, includes our assessment of the county's compliance with federal program requirements over each federal program we are required to audit, our report on internal control over compliance with federal programs, and the county's federal schedule of federal expenditures and our opinion on it. The single audit report is where we reported 4 findings we found during our federal compliance audit that Dan will be discussing in a little bit. I will now turn it over to Don, who will be discussing the county's fiscal year 2022 financial highlights and the audit findings we reported in the county's fiscal year 22 report on internal control and on compliance.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, board, for having us here today. Appreciate it. Because we know these reports can be detailed and complex, we also prepare audit report highlights, a 2-page summary that you received with the single audit report. The highlights include the county's largest primary revenue sources and how the county used those monies over the last 10 years. The highlights also provide brief information about our key findings and recommendations, if any, and contain links to certain current and prior audit reports and user guides that may be helpful in understanding the important information that's presented in the reports. I would like to take an opportunity to present to you some key financial information presented for the county over the last 5 years. The county's 4 main sources of revenues consist of federal and state grants and programs, county property taxes, shared state sales taxes, and county sales taxes. As you can see from the graph, the county's revenues for county property taxes, shared state sales tax, and property taxes have been relatively consistent over the last 5 years. However, federal and state grants have increased over the last 3 years, primarily because of increased federal grant revenues received and directed towards COVID-19. As you can see from this graph, the county's 4 primary expense purposes consist of general government, public safety, health and welfare, and highways and streets. While highways and streets expenditures remained relatively constant over the last 5 years, general government expenses were back down to pre-21 levels after increasing by $9.1 million in fiscal year 21 due to expenditures related to various capital improvements. Public safety expenditures increased by $8.5 million in fiscal year 22 due to flood mitigation efforts after the Telegraph fire in the summer of 2021. And finally, health and welfare expenditures increased by $4.4 million from an increase in spending of federal revenues directed at COVID-19, as I discussed previously. On this next slide, the graph highlights the 5-year trend of the county's revenues exceeding its expenses. As you can see with the black line, make sure it's the county's net position has increased every year since fiscal year 2018. Most importantly, the county's overall net position increased by $5.8 million from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22 because revenues exceeded expenses. Total net position for the county is $25.2 million at the end of fiscal year 22. It's important to note that not all net position is spendable because $33.7 million of net position was invested in capital assets. Sorry. I was on the wrong slide. I apologize. Finally, I'd like to highlight the county's federal expenditures that are presented each year in the single audit report. Although the county received grants from 12 federal agencies during fiscal year 22, you can see from the bar chart that nearly 60% of its federal expenditures were from U.S. Department of Health and Human Service grants, over half of which were spent on COVID-19 related programs. I will now discuss the 5 financial audit findings and recommendations we reported on in the county's fiscal year 22 reports. These findings are all repeated from prior years. As previously noted, the report on internal control and on compliance is where you will find our findings, our financial audit findings, along with the county's responses. For the county, we reported 5 financial statement findings in this report. It's important to note that the county corrected 1 financial statement finding initially occurring in fiscal year 2013 by accurately compiling, recording, and reporting financial information in its annual financial report and issuing the report in a timely manner. The first financial statement finding identified deficiencies in the county's process for awarding 54 economic development awards to community nonprofit and governmental organizations and following up to ensure that $140,925 paid to those organizations was used on activities that benefited the public. While the county has developed written policies and procedures, they do not include pre-award and follow-up steps to ensure that awarded monies are spent as intended or monies were returned if unspent. We recommend that the county management should improve its policies and procedures for awarding and monitoring discretionary monies used for economic development to include pre-award and follow-up steps for it to follow that, number 1, include detailed guidelines and requirements that all award recipients must meet to qualify for economic development award monies. For example, the county's policies should describe acceptable award uses. Further, the county should create an award application where entities would be required to describe their intended uses, such as service and activity goals, expected outcomes, and performance measures, and to provide sufficient detailed budgets indicating how and when the requested monies will be used. Number 2, require awarded entities to report and certify how monies were spent. This report and certification should be required periodically or at least once the specified and approved time frame for expending the monies has occurred. And 3, require awarded entities to return any unexpended or misspent monies. A similar finding has been reported since fiscal year 2017. The county did improve its processes by ensuring that a committee evaluated award requests to be approved by the county's Board of Supervisors in an open meeting so that the public is aware of the entities to which awards are being made. The county continues to work towards implementing our other recommendations. It concurred with our finding and reported that it anticipates fully correcting the deficiencies by December of 2023. The second financial statement finding identified deficiencies in the county's purchasing card review and approval process. Specifically, the county did not review and approve and ensure appropriate support was obtained for $36,610 of public monies its employees spent on various purchasing card expenditures to ensure that they were for authorized purposes necessary for official county business. Specifically, for 33 of 60 fiscal year 2022 purchasing card transactions that we tested, the county paid for purchases prior to ensuring they were authorized as follows. There were 15 transactions totaling $11,752 that were not reviewed and approved by the assigned county department supervisor. And there were 18 transactions totaling $24,858 that lacked required supporting documentation, including support that the purchase was for authorized county purposes. Therefore, we recommended the following. The county should update its policies and procedures over procurement card expenditures to clarify when county department heads should review and approve purchases, what supporting documentation is required if an official county business purpose was not evident from the invoice, receipt, or other support, and specify penalties for purchasing cardholders who violate county policies. Next, require county department heads and others responsible for reviewing and approving purchasing card expenditures, including those for travel, to approve only those transactions that are supported by documentation that evidence the purchase is for official county business, and to do so prior to the county's paying for them. Number 3, require its finance department to develop a process for monitoring county departments' compliance with the county's policies to ensure that the county does not pay for purchasing card expenditures, including those for travel, that do not have the required invoices, travel claims, receipts, or other documentation supporting that they're for a valid county purpose. And finally, train all county employees who are purchasing cardholders and department heads on its policies and procedures for purchasing card expenditures. Training should address detailed instructions for how to submit documentation for review and approval and what documentation to provide. It should also address competitive purchasing procedures and advances, authorization documentation requirements before purchases being made. A similar finding has been reported since fiscal year 2017. The county continues to work towards implementing our prior recommendations, and the county reported that it concurs with our finding and anticipates fully correcting the deficiencies by June 30th of 2023. The third financial statement finding identified deficiencies in the county's process for inventorying and other record keeping of capital assets the county classified as machinery and equipment. Specifically, since 2009, the county had not performed a physical inventory of its machinery and equipment, reported at nearly $6 million, to ensure that they were controlled and safeguarded, and the related capital asset records were updated, accurate, and complete so that they were correctly reported in its financial statements. Therefore, we recommend that the county should perform a complete physical inventory of capital assets, including at all of its departments at least every 2 years, maintaining the inventory documentation, and reconciling the inventory results to the capital asset listing to ensure they're accurate and complete. And 2, develop and maintain detailed capital asset inventorying policies and procedures, and provide training to employees to effectively control, safeguard, and report its capital assets, including depreciation. The written procedures should also include processes for performing a physical inventory and reconciling to capital asset records, reconciling current year capital expenditures to current year additions, and reconciling current year capital asset balances to prior year capital asset balances. A similar finding has been reported since fiscal year 2013. The county continues to work towards implementing our prior recommendations and did improve its process from the prior year by inventorying construction in progress assets. The county reported that it concurs with the finding and anticipates fully correcting the deficiencies by completing a physical inventory by this past May 2023 and completing the reconciliation by June 30th of 2023. The fourth financial statement finding identified deficiencies in the county's process for managing and documenting its information technology risks. Specifically, the county's process for managing and documenting its risks did not include an overall risk assessment process that included analyzing and recording and responding to the county-wide information technology risks, such as potential harm from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction of IT systems. It also did not include classifying and inventory sensitive information that might need stronger access and security controls. Therefore, we recommended the county administration and IT management plan for where to allocate resources and where to implement critical controls, ask responsible administrative officials and management over finance, IT, and other entity functions for input into the county process for managing risk, perform an annual entity-wide IT risk assessment process that includes evaluating and documenting risks and safeguards, and evaluate and manage the risks of holding sensitive information by classifying and inventorying the information the county holds to assess where stronger access and security controls may be needed to protect data in accordance with state statute and federal regulation. A similar finding has been reported since fiscal year 2014. The county does continue to work towards implementing our prior recommendations. It concurred with our finding and reported that it anticipates fully correcting the deficiencies by June 30th of 2023. And the fifth and final financial statement finding identified deficiencies in the county's controls over its IT systems and data. Our report identifies several recommendations to develop comprehensive written IT policies and procedures over restricting access to its IT systems and managing system configurations and changes. A similar finding has been reported since fiscal year 2014, and again, the county has made progress towards for our recommendations. The county reported that it concurs with the finding and anticipates fully correcting the deficiencies by June 30th, 2023. I'll now turn it over to Dan, who will discuss the single audit findings and recommendations we reported on the county's fiscal year 22 single audit report.
As previously noted, the single audit report is where you will find our federal compliance audit findings, as well as the county's responses to them. For the county, we reported 4 federal compliance findings related to the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds program and the community programs to improve minority health grant program. The county continues to work toward correcting a previously reported finding over the housing Choice Vouchers Program and anticipates fully correcting this deficiency by July of 2023. For the first federal compliance finding, we reported that the county did not submit the June 30th, 2022 single audit report to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse until May 2023, which was 2 months later than required. We recommend that the Finance Department should evaluate the county's need to allocate additional resources to timely meet agreed upon deadlines for providing information needed for audit, and improve financial reporting process so that it can submit the county's future single audit reports on or before the federally required submission deadline, which is no later than 9 months after the fiscal year end or March 31st of the subsequent year. The county reported that it concurs with this finding and plan to correct this deficiency by May 31st, 2023. The second federal compliance finding found that the county inappropriately used a sole source procurement for a contract paid for with Corona state and local fiscal recovery funds monies. Specifically, the Public Works Department, which initiated the sole source procurement, and the county's former procurement officer who approved the sole source procurement inappropriately used a sole source procurement for a contract of $25,625 for hauling dirt for the county fair arena paid for with federal program monies, while failing to ensure multiple sources for the service did not exist and did not appropriately document the sole source justification in the contract file. We recommend that the county should require the Public Works Department and procurement officer to follow county policies and procedures for determining and documenting each sole source procurement only after conducting a good faith search for available sources and concluding that only a single source and include it in the control file. Annually train county employees with purchasing responsibilities, including the Public Works Department and procurement officer, on the county's policies and procedures for determining and documenting sole source procurements. The county reported that it concurs with this finding and plans to correct this deficiency by June 30th, 2023. The third federal compliance finding found that the county's Finance Department did not review and approve all 4 federal program reports before submitting them to the federal agency. Specifically, the department was advanced $10,492,363 of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds monies. And of this amount, the department reported expenditures totaling $707,004 in progress reports as of June 30th, 2022. However, the department did not perform an independent review and approval of the required progress reports to ensure that the $707,004 of reported expenditures was accurate, agreed to county records, and contained only allowable expenditures. We recommended that the Finance Department develop policies and procedures requiring the department to perform and document an independent review and approval of all federal programs reports before submitting them to the federal agency to ensure the reports were accurate, agree to county records, and contain only allowable expenditures, and reconcile program expenditures amounts to the county's accounting records. Adjust or resubmit reports for errors detected on reports the department already submitted to the federal agency, or work with the federal agency so that it is informed of the errors on previously submitted reports. Train department employees responsible for preparing and reviewing reports on what information to gather to prepare the reports and on the county's policies and procedures. The county reported it concurs with this finding and plan to implement our recommendations by May 31st, 2023. The fourth and final federal compliance finding found that the county's Health and Emergency Management Department and Finance Department did not prepare and submit timely and accurate program information to the federal grantor agency for monitoring and expense reimbursements on the Community Programs to Improve Minority Health Grants program. Specifically, the department submitted the first 2 required quarterly reports to the federal agency 95 and 11 days later than the required for the September 30th, 2021 and December 31st, 2021 reports respectively. The department also reported inaccurate information in all 4 quarterly reports they submitted. We recommend that the county management should develop and implement policies and procedures requiring the departments to perform and document an independent review and approval of all federal program reports before submitting them to the federal agency to ensure the reports are accurate, agree to county records, and contain only allowable expenditures, and submit the reports timely. Annually train the department's employees who are responsible for preparing and reviewing the reports regarding the information required to be gathered and documented in the county's policies and procedures. The county reported that it concurs with this finding and plans to implement our recommendations by June 30th, 2023. We will follow up on these findings as part of our county's fiscal year 23 audit, which will begin this summer. Our follow-up will focus on whether the county implemented our recommendations and complied with all applicable laws and regulations. Additionally, the federal grantor may decide to review our prior year information as part of their responsibilities to follow up on our audit findings, up to the applicable federal records retention period, which is generally 3 years from the last expenditure or final report. This completes our presentation of the county's fiscal year 2022 audit reports, including the 9 reported findings. Are there any questions that any of the 3 of us could answer for you?
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey, questions, comments?
I guess as far as questions, as I would appreciate any help that you can be in guiding our staff to prepare documents for you. I thank you very much. And this is kind of a public spanking, but I'm proud to have it, because before we were in office, Gila County was 7 years behind in the state audit. So thank you for the spanking. At least we're getting it, and we're getting progressively better. And by having our state audits, it allows us to put in for some of these grant funds that we're getting penalized for not documenting it correctly. But at least we can reach out for those grants now for the public to be able to help them more, being we're caught up. So I guess thank you for the presentation. Thank you for helping our staff get better at what you need us to do. And we'll keep trying to stay caught up on our audits, because we realize that, or I realize the benefit to the public for keeping these up and records and documents the way they should. So thank you for the presentation.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I don't admire your job. It seems very complicated and intense. And like Supervisor Humphrey was saying, I know our staff is working to solve all of these things that in past history have not been perfect, and working toward a day where we can say we have no findings at all. So can I ask a question though? Out of all the 15 counties in Arizona, are there any that come up at the end of the audit with no findings whatsoever?
Boy, that's a good question.
Is it really rare?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christensen, no, I am not aware that there is any county that comes up with no findings. Typically, the area that we see all of the counties continue to have findings is in the IT area. As you know, the information technology area is constantly changing. Right. Every day at all levels of government, there are continual IT issues as that, you know, the hackers continue to seem to overtake systems no matter what types of controls are in place. And as systems continue to become more sophisticated each and every day, to keep those systems safe and protected is just a continual effort. And so that seems to be the biggest area that governments and all sorts of companies, large and small, continue to struggle with. And we have for many years spent a lot of our effort training our staff to ensure that all of our auditees have a lot of time and attention when we do our audit work. And so that's an area that we continue to have findings at all levels of audits, local governments, state agencies, the universities, the community college districts. So no one is exempt from a finding.
And there's a reason I ask that, because as people are listening or reporting on today's discussion, that Gila County has made tremendous gains
Yes.
in reducing the amount of findings that we have, even though it may be relatively unachievable to ever get to 0. We're only at 9 today, and I think that's probably a good number as we continue to improve that going forward, and I anticipate good reports going forward. So thank you very much.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, we do want to thank you and we want to thank your staff for their cooperation throughout the audit. And as my team said, we have found definite improvements in each of the areas, as both gentlemen acknowledged in their presentations, that there were definitely more areas that there were findings historically. And when we did our audit work, certainly we found within our samples larger, populations, larger samples of problems. And so we definitely are seeing progress, and we are seeing more cooperation from your staff and definitely more interest in solving the problems that exist in Gila County. And so we do applaud you and thank you for those efforts, and definitely look forward to continuing to work with your staff on the fiscal year 23 audit. And we are here to be a resource to the county. Yes, we are your auditors, but we definitely are happy to always answer questions when questions arise and they want to know what could we do. We're here to help solve those problems and help answer questions about what controls could be put in place to help alleviate a situation that exists. We have a whole division in our office who helps solve those challenges for government entities. And so your staff should always feel free to reach out to these gentlemen, reach out to me, and we can get them in touch with the right people who can help solve those challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more question.
Absolutely.
Can you define or give examples of what the public benefit means? For the public benefit.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christensen, the public benefit is to protect those public monies that the county spends every day, to make sure that those monies are being spent on the appropriate services that the county should be spending them on.
So we struggle with what is appropriate and what is for public benefit. So I'm trying to narrow the general idea that it's just going to benefit people to specifically what we should not be doing, maybe, would be easier.
Statute would define certain things, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christensen. There would be certain things in statute that certain monies can be spent on. For example, if you have road monies might be restricted to certain things, that you can spend them on road repairs, for example. So if you're spending them on a party for your staff, that would be not a public benefit. But if you're spending them to fill potholes, that would be a public benefit, as a very direct public benefit.
Okay, let me ask it another way then. So we have never been notified by the Auditor General that we're misspending public money. Can you give me an example, without naming names, of how another county has done that or could do that? What would be a red flag? What's the kind of thing? And I'm not talking about a party. I'm talking about discretionary spending to help nonprofits or other entities within the county that you feel are of the public benefit and are discretionary, that we vote on, and all of that. What would be the kind of thing that we should never be giving money out for? I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well. So we have legal opinions that we have that come to us about what that means, but it seems rather subjective in many ways to me.
Chairman Klein, Supervisor Christensen, there would be instances where the Constitution prohibits gift of public monies. And so there would be instances where a county may be providing monies to a little league, for example, to rehabilitate their ballpark field. And that would not be something that unless they have gone through all of the steps, worked with their legal counsel, would necessarily be considered in the public interest unless they followed everything that the Constitution would require. And instead, those monies should be used for something that would be in the public interest, which might be something more akin to being, if that entity has a library, it might be something that they should be using to buy books for their library, for example, if the county funds a public library. And so I think that would be something. Now, if it has a park district and there's a public park that has a ball field, it could perhaps be renovating the public parks ball field in the county parks ball field. But to give it to the Little League, which is a nonprofit organization, that could be where it's running afoul of the Constitution. Again, you'd have to work with your legal counsel to make sure, depending on that. And again, I'm not legal counsel, but that's where you'd have to work with legal counsel. So you have to always work with your legal counsel and make sure that it is consistent with what the Constitution says and what legal counsel says.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful, knowing that what we're doing now is not putting up any red flags, so thank you.
Yes, we didn't find any instances during the course of these audits
correct.
that indicated fraud.
And that's why it's
Or-
so important to maintain that documentation as to why it's valid for public purpose.
And that's why, as we made recommendations, you know, we found instances where expenditures weren't reviewed.
Right.
We found instances where people didn't follow policies and procedures, or there weren't policies and procedures. And that's why those controls should be in place. The controls being the policies and procedures, the controls being the reviews. So if someone is doing something like giving money to someone they shouldn't, or spending more money when they're traveling than what the policy allows to be spent, that then someone is not approving that they were able to spend $100 for their dinner when the policy says dinner should only be reimbursed at how much? At $30, for example, if that's what the policy says. Because then that wouldn't be appropriate to reimburse them for the $100. But if no one reviewed that travel claim and the county gave them the $100 for their dinner, then that would be where it wasn't in the public interest that they got the extra $70. So that's why those controls are in place to ensure it's reviewed and they're only reimbursed what the policy allows.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Jessica.
Chairman, member supervisors, Melanie, you brought out the point that I was trying to clarify, in that the audit findings was just about the process for the economic development grants and not so the expenditure.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
You guys, thank you for the presentation. We like hearing how we're doing, and it's a good place to go from there. So thank you so much for coming up here today and presenting. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 2B, presentation regarding the activities of the County Supervisors Association for fiscal year 22 to 23. Craig, welcome this morning. Oh, you got Jason do it. Jason, welcome. For those of you that don't know Jason, Jason's a Navajo County Supervisor, so we're always glad to see you.
Chairman, members of the board, grateful to be here with you today. Chairman Klein, wanted to thank you for your involvement in Eastern County's organization. It's an organization that you've served on, Supervisor Christensen, and I have a chance to work on as well, and really enjoy the partnership with Gila County and the opportunity to be able to work with you and get to know you better. You as a team of supervisors have been outstanding to work with across the state, and I value my relationship with you and with the people here in Gila County. As I was coming here, I used to always argue with my aunt. I'm going to be real honest here. I used to always argue with my aunt. You win either way, I guess, because it's going Payson or coming this way to go back up to where I live. two different drives. They both go through your county, but my aunt and I used to always argue. She would say I was an idiot and it was way more pretty to come this way through Globe and go up. And I'd always say it was pretty to go through Payson, but coming over that hill, getting out of the valley and seeing, you know, the canyons and the different things that were there, it is absolutely beautiful, especially right now, and really see the beauty that she was always talking about. Don't tell her I said that. I like to be right. So anyways, but absolutely beautiful, pretty diverse country that you have here in Gila County, and it's certainly nice to be here with you today. Wanted to thank you, like I said, for your involvement in CSA. One of the nice things about that organization, the County Supervisors Association, is that we come together as a group. We have a united voice, and as a united voice, we're able to work together as a team at the legislature and at the federal level to help them to understand what's actually happening and occurring for our citizens that are in these areas. And it seems like the rural areas that we all live in get impacted rather greatly by the federal government. So appreciate your voices and the partnership that we have with you and the continuing conversation with CSA. I also wanted to thank, and I understand he's on the line, if that's right, Mr. Menlove. He chairs the county Managers Association, and he's done a wonderful job. He's been a good leader, always stands up and gives a good report, and I've always appreciated that his report's good and accurate as he reports to what they're working on and what's going on with the managers, but he's also mindful of the clock and how much time we have and doesn't get real long-winded. So certainly appreciate him and appreciate the good man that he is and the work that he does. Joining me today, of course, is Craig Sullivan, who does a wonderful job leading out at the County Supervisors Association. He'll be presenting here in a moment, but before he does, I wanted to remind you about the summit that's coming up. It'll be over in Coconino County. Would highly encourage, love to have you be there. It's important that we're all there because that's the time that we have to be able to talk about the next legislative session. That is, if this one ever ends. But we'll have a chance to hopefully talk about what's going to happen next year and how do we prepare and how do we make sure that our citizens' voices are heard and elevated at that level. So thank you for your partnership in that. And Mr. Chairman, if there's nothing else, or if you don't have any questions for me, I'd love to turn the time over to Mr. Sullivan.
Oh, I think we're good. Supervisor Humphrey, you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Jason, for coming. Really good to see you again.
Appreciate you, Jason. Thanks.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I might have one. On when do we have to have anything in for the summit? To discuss?
That's a great question. I know that it's in August, but I'll let Craig give you the exact timeline for that, if that's okay with you, Supervisor.
Yeah, because I know that Mr. Menlove's on the line, but it's something I'd like to get involved in this year because we didn't seem to make it last year.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Good with me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good morning.
Welcome, Craig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. For the record, I'm Craig Sullivan with the County Supervisors Association, and it's really my pleasure to stand before you today. I really value the opportunity to come before you and speak about the work of the association, how we're supporting your county. It's critical to me and my team that we are engaged with all of you and getting your feedback, and you see how we're spending our time in your interest because we value your leadership and your partnership and how we serve all 15 counties. I did provide a document to you that's fairly lengthy, and I'll go through some of those slides, but I won't go through it all. I just wanted to give you a good amount of content if you do have some questions to move me along. And I do think that as Mr. Whiting was lauding Mr. Menlove for his brief presentations at our board meetings, I think it was a veiled suggestion about how I go forward today as well, and so I'll take it that way accordingly. This PowerPoint and the document that you have will talk about what we do as an organization in terms of capacity building and information sharing. It'll outline key activities with our research and analytics function, and it'll talk a little bit about our legislative work, and so that's where this is going to take us. But first, for folks who are not familiar with the organization, and I apologize to folks in the crowd that it's a little bit dark up here, but what is our organization? The County Supervisors is an organization, a collaboration of all 15 counties. You all serve on my board along with all of your colleagues from the other counties, and we benefit from that leadership. And we're really focused in a nonpartisan way at looking what helps all of the counties in several areas. One is information development and capacity and to improve decision making locally. We do a lot of research, we bring in guests, and then of course we serve as an intergovernmental office. And so you see all of this. But the key is really about why it's important, and it's important because intergovernmental partnerships are critical for entities like counties. We are impacted by authorities outside of this region that impact your resources, impact your operations. And so by working together, we're able to bring the voice of county elected officials to those various forums. And you all know that well, but I think it's important that constituents are aware of the value of the collaboration. So moving on to the report, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on how we focus on capacity development and information sharing. There's a lot of content here, but it basically breaks down like this. We try to use our forums, our board meetings, as well as webinars that we conduct on a regular basis to bring in elected leaders, agencies, heads, and policy professionals to talk with you about issues that are relevant to your county. We do that on a regular basis. Now you know you're very familiar with a lot of the topics that we've engaged in. We're also very proud and privileged to partner with what we call affiliate groups, the Managers Association, the finance directors, the planning folks working in your counties. And this really strengthens the collaboration across all 15 counties at a professional staff level. And I find it infinitely valuable to get their feedback, and we try to share with them what's happening at the legislature and other places. And that really strengthens the collaboration as well. And then as an association, you can see on the left, we do secure appointments to various committees that are relevant to you. Often there are a lot of ad hoc committees, but these are some of the standing committees that we're involved in. Things like making sure we're representing your interests at the PSPRS Board of Trustees. Our president serves on the ACA, the Commerce Authority Board of Directors. We have liaisons to the court systems, and most recently I've been assigned to the Governor's Water Policy Council. So there's always an effort to make sure that counties are connected with these conversations through the association. I'd like to spend a little bit more time on our research and data initiative. It's a very significant part of what we do. You see a lot of the work as it comes at the tip of the iceberg, if you will. But what it's all about is just collecting a mountain of relevant data to county government, packaging that and analyzing it into visualizations that often we have on the website, or we do have on the website, and we plug into our advocacy and analysis. So when you come to our board meetings, a lot of that analytical work is because of our data initiative. We have identified and will continue to identify critical value-add research projects that we think will improve decision-making at both the state and the local level. And so I want to highlight a few of those that are ongoing for you. So these are some of the research projects, and please know the black writing doesn't matter, it's about the white heading. We are currently developing an expenditure limit resource guide that gives the history and all the activities related to constitutionally required expenditure limits in the counties. This has been a pain point that's been brought forward to us by many of the counties. We are working on public safety pensions, which you know for several years we've had a strategic initiative to partner across the state to figure out how to pay down the public safety pension situation in a cost-effective way, but also to make sure that we as stakeholders are involved in the decision-making by the Board of Trustees that is managing all of this money. And so our team spends a lot of time analyzing the decisions and the inputs going into the pension system to help me serve on the advisory committee role that I serve on, along with the League of Cities and Towns, as well as briefing the county appointment to the Board of Trustees, Alan McGuire. And so there's a ton of work that goes into that space, but the financial consequences are so big, it's really important that we're all spending time on it. We're developing a probation officer compilation of information that will lead to a data dashboard of information that we've been compiling over the last couple of years. But what I wanted to pull out for you is workforce development issues. We've had a series of meetings for the last few years about problems in recruitment and retention across all functions of county government. We're seeing it everywhere. There was a statutory requirement that PSPRS convene a work group to look at this problem in police and fire. We have deputies, they're in the police category. It doesn't address detention. But since we were assigned to that effort, our team looked for ways to support it in a more effective way. And what that led to was this work group seeking a grant from the Arizona Board of Regents, which pulls in these universities to work with this group to do this analysis: recruitment and retention evaluations, best practice compilation, interviews of leadership, interviews of folks who are already working in the function. And ideally, we'd like to get out in the field and see what's the whole workforce development pipeline look like. We're limited in our scope of where we're able to take this because it was a statutory requirement given to PSPRS, but our team wanted to make sure we were bringing some resources and value to it, and so we've been managing these relationships and had a big role, Vanessa Fielder on our team and Brandon Nee, in shaping the whole research project. So you'll learn more about that when we come off this summer. This is kind of the work plan on our data initiative, and so you can just see how each of those projects is moving forward over the course of the year. And we will be providing a status update at our policy summit in October. We'll also be rolling on some new research projects going into the next year. So this stuff is all foundational, and we want to make sure that we are doing this kind of deep thinking to support our other work that we do for the counties. So moving a little bit into the legislature, and I'll just hit some of these key things. Mr. Whiting mentioned that the session's still ongoing, and so we do have to continue to monitor it. They'll come back into session at the end of July. Since they are open, things could happen. We don't know what that'll be. All indications are that they've really wound down most of the policy conversation, but we really have to stay on guard and see what's occurring there. This is going to be the longest session that we've ever experienced if they do follow through on the plans to go to the end of July. Just a little bit about some of the narrative. You're all aware of the conversations that we had just about the evolution of the budget, but the key takeaways are these. We had a divided government for the first time in 15 years with a Democrat in the governor's office and then a Republican-controlled legislature. They had to figure out how to work together, and the financial picture often tells you how to work together. They saw fairly readily that there was a lot of one-time money, but really no ongoing money. And so the whole conversation migrated to that one-time space. And this shows, which is a very, very compelling graphic in their document, shows where all of the money went. And let me hit a couple of highlights. $2.25 billion were allocated for one-time projects and one-time support. You see how that breaks down on the left. Transportation, K-12 education, school facilities and housing. $260 million was for a one-time income tax rebate. That's where all the cash went, right, into these various buckets. And this is where members who were given each $30 million or $20 million to allocate cobbled together how they wanted to spend resources. And so that's what really drove the state budget conversation. That led to a significant amount of allocations across the state for transportation projects, local water projects, and local distributions. And this document, this slide shows how that maps. Gila County was at the table there on some important items. ADOT projects to the tune of about $8.6 million, and the $3 million veterans allocation for the veterans project that you are all working on. And I want to commend you, Mr. Chairman. You've been educating folks on that for some time now, and you've done an outstanding job cobbling together resources to make that a reality.
Thank you,
well
Craig.
done on that.
Appreciate that.
I love seeing passion projects come to fruition, and it's really exciting. You'll just have to take me out there at some point because I do want to see
You
the
have an
location.
open
We're
invitation
looking forward
anytime.
to it. Now, the way they did this by allocating one-time money did impact our ability and everybody's ability to solve big issues that are ongoing. So we had two on the table. One was related to how the state properly funds its responsibility for probation officers and avoids shifting those costs to the counties. They did put some money in for back owed salary increases for probation officers. They had some language in there that would have made us liable for some of these expenses. That was removed. But what hasn't been solved is the ongoing commitment of the state to the probation officers, and that puts them in a difficult position, and the counties as well, because we can see that cost starting to migrate into the county coffers. So we really have to solve that. And that's a real governance issue, and we need to get lawmakers to pay attention to it. Similarly, the closed elected officials retirement plan, this is a legacy debt, pension debt, that we're carrying on the books. We wanted to work with the state to put some cash in that, act like a bank, and then we would pay them back our share. And all told, it would have saved taxpayers in the state about $670 million if they had worked with us on that quote-unquote refinancing package. But since they were all focusing on localized projects, this item, which was a large expenditure one time, didn't make it in the final budget, though we did have some good champions on the topic. So we're going to have to revisit those two items going forward. We did run some bills for our client counties. Here are 4. We put 4 in the system. All 4 were signed. It says 3 there, but the governor signed 2669 last Friday. I want to highlight the work that Jacob Emnett and Robin Hilliard do on our reactive advocacy piece. This is where we're just waiting for all these bills to come into the process, and then we have to figure out what they mean for the counties. And very importantly, we don't operate as a partisan entity. Our view is always a county lens. What do these bills mean from a resource and operational standpoint? And then when we ask our members to consider them, we have a supermajority threshold to take a position, because we don't want to migrate into the political winds. We want to stay right on what works for county government serving constituents. And again, I do want to thank you, Mr. Christensen, for all the time you spent on the LPC with us. I learned so much as I go through all those bills with everybody, but I do appreciate your effort there. You can see how the numbers break down, and I won't belabor a whole lot of this with you, but it is a mountain of staff work that Robin and Jacob put in, and they did very well working with legislators to largely address the concerns that we had. I did want to flag this. I mean, we talked earlier before the session about it. The governor has set a record for vetoes this year. Over 111 bills have been vetoed, and that's going to grow. You can see the historical veto track. When you peel that back, a lot of it is, kind of partisan bills that the Republican majority wanted to put on her desk, but some of them are, just items where she's weighing in on policy issues. For example, the food preparation, cottage food statutory changes, the so-called tamale bill. That's something that does touch the counties. We had amended our issues out of it, but we do anticipate that's going to come back, and we are at the table to work on solutions now that that is back in the system. These are all bills that passed, and my intent here is really just to give you a sense of the diversity of policy areas that our team works on. It ranges from P&Z to board powers and elections, as you well know. We don't know when the general effective date is for bills yet, so we're going to wait until the legislature informs us of that, right? It's always 90 days after the legislature sine dies. But we are summarizing all the bills that have been signed into law now, and we will have a full report for your professional staff, because you're all going to have to implement these new policies. The good thing is that there aren't a whole lot of really process-changing policies that were put in place. Most of them are just policy improvements or things that mattered to a member or constituents and kind of made sense ultimately to pass into law. I put a little chart that's starting to look like a Rube Goldberg device here as it relates to elections, but this just shows you that elections is still a very salient conversation. 119 bills were introduced into the legislature touching election processes. 34 went to the governor, and 1 has been signed. And so a lot of talk, not a lot of outcome, and that's because there's strong opinions and differences on these policies. The governor does have a election task force in place that's going to come up with recommendations that probably influences where a lot of this is. I want to commend the elections officials and the recorders and our partners over at ACO. They have done yeoman's work at putting good quality information and feedback in a very contentious environment. And I think they have been outstanding public servants as we've gone through all of this. And so I do want to thank them publicly. Water is the issue of our time. You know this well. It's going to continue to be. And we need to make sure that we're at the table monitoring, what the various regions think about various water policies. I will tell you, I've been working with the counties a long time. I know we've got 15 counties and probably 75 positions on water policy, so I'm very sensitive to that. And we want to make sure that we're talking and processing and informing all of you about what does come on the table. Notably, big ticket item last year was to capitalize $1 billion in the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority to fund water augmentation, to grow the water pie, to mix analogies, here in Arizona. The legislature was to deposit $333 million into that this year. They earmarked half of that, right? Not for water augmentation, but for various water-related infrastructure projects. They're all probably good projects, but I just wanted to highlight that money that was going to go to the augmentation pot has been earmarked for other projects. There's still a lot of augmentation money in there, but we all need that issue to be top of mind. And then just finally, I did want to close out with some slides for all of you, or some documents that we'll be distributing. So again, I'm very grateful for all the work that we do with Mr. Menlove and your professional staff. They're phenomenal partners with all of us. When we wrap up a session, we push out a bunch of documents to help kind of figure out what happened at the legislature and implement it. And here they are, several of them are listed for you. These will all be getting wrapped up and distributed as soon as possible. Some of them already have gone out. But please, for you and your staff, as they're trying to get their bearings on new laws, what was in the budget, anything else, we're available to you. Tell us how we can help you as we go forward. And then, Mr. Humphrey, I wanted to save the best for last, so I wanted to talk about the deadline for submitting proposals into our policy development process. We are asking the counties to submit proposals by August 7th so that we can start processing them for the Coconino County Summit. If the issue is not fully ready, that's okay. We just need to get an indicator that you have an item that's a priority for your board to have considered at that time, and we want to be available to serve you in that capacity. And as you're developing concepts, we're available too to help with any technical expertise we can offer.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And with that, Mr. Chairman, thanks for all the time. I probably violated what my president was directing me at the beginning, but I appreciate your generosity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Craig. You have something you want to say, Jason?
Just real quick, I apologize. In my head, I had some jokes that I was going to share, especially as the accountant sat back here and gave their spiel, whether I needed to read my report the whole way through verbatim or how you guys wanted things done. And then my manager said, hey, they're coming on Tuesday, and it kind of shocked me. I thought, I better be quiet because they're coming to my board next. So threw me off a little bit, but Supervisor Christensen, I didn't get to thank you for being on the LPC, and your voice has been one of reason and one that really mattered. For those that don't know, the Legislative Policy Committee, each county has a representative that serves on that and has a chance to be able to speak to the various bills that are coming down the pipe. And so we have a chance to get kind of united around how the bills will impact our citizens. And the great thing that I would say, and I hope you don't mind me speaking.
No, you're good.
The board that you have, and I mean it as sincerely as I can say it, is outstanding. They truly are public servants that care about the people that they represent, and I have a chance to work with each one of them. And it's an honor to work with them and to get to see how they care about the citizens they represent and the bold leaders that they are, that they're not afraid to stand up for what is right. So anyways, it's a pleasure to work with you folks here at Gila County, and I apologize, I meant to say that. I mean, they just threw me off a little bit. I had hair before I came in, but anyways, I apologize.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Supervisor Humphrey, comments or questions?
Only comment is thank you all very, very much for the support that you give us and lead us in, and it's so nice to be able to go down and be welcome and have a voice in what goes on and all you do and try so hard to help keep us united to have that voice. And so just appreciative very much of all your hard work and interest.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Craig and Jason. Thank you for your kind words, Jason. Jason's one of the first supervisors I met after I was appointed. We were up in the Greer area. I can't remember what that was all about, but it was a fun time. And so you've been a good friend, a good advisor, and now serving as the leader at the CSA for the supervisors. So it's an honor to work with you. It's an honor to work with Craig. I think the CSA does an outstanding job representing all the counties to the legislature. And it's surprising to me that 15 of us that are on the LPC almost always agree on the approach we should take toward a bill. And there's a lot of diversity on that. There's liberals, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. But we all seem to smell a bad one when we smell a bad one, and we all can get behind a good one. So it's really neat. So thanks for coming today.
That was my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Craig, you guys are awesome, you know, and I don't know, it's comforting to me, like when we get into situations, you guys are just a phone call away. And that means a lot when we're sitting in these chairs to figure things out. And then I watch you kind of herd all 15 counties and kind of keep everybody and going and on the same track. I'm amazed. It's got to be like herding chickens, you know? So it's really good, but you guys are really awesome. Thank you so much for what you guys do, and make sure and pass that along to your team too, because they are great. So
I'll do exactly that. Thank you very much, Mr.
thank you,
Chairman.
Craig.
Board.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 3, public hearings. 3A, information, discussion, action to adopt ordinance number 2023-06, which authorizes an amendment to the Gila County zoning map for unincorporated areas for Gila County by changing the zoning for assessor's parcel number 301-10-010F, located at 7911 West Sumac Drive, Strawberry, Arizona, to residential 1, district density 10, R1-D10. Randy, good morning.
Morning, Chairman and Supervisors. There's 2 items on your agenda. They're both going to be right after each other. They are lots next to each other. So almost everything I say about the first one, I won't have to say on the second one, so I can help move it along. But if you'll see the F on the slide there, that's the first one we're talking about, and then literally the one right next to it is going to be the next one. So what is being requested here is David Lefano, who is the owner of Bowtie Roofing, is requesting a zoning change from C2 to R1D10. C2 is commercial, obviously. The residential property around there, as you'll see that whole corner there, that's where the Strawberry Inn, the Chalet, and all those establishments are right there. That next lot's back are where we're talking about. The applicant owns the subject property on Sumac Drive in Strawberry, which is currently zoned C2. In October of 2007, Mr. Alfano applied for a development plan for his roofing company that would utilize the property for storing equipment and tools for the business, as well as to accommodate a site-built caretaker's quarters. In October 2007, the development plan was approved. C-zoning is not intended for mixed residential and commercial uses. In 2008, a permit was issued and construction was completed for the residents to be used as a caretaker's quarter. Per section 101.3A, property owners were notified within 300 feet of the subject property. A meeting was held on March 24th, 2023. Per Mr. Lefano, there were no attendees at the neighborhood meeting, and he received no calls or emails with any concerns expressed by neighbors. To date, Gila County Planning and Zoning staff has not received any calls either. The C2 zoning intent is to permit most types of commercial activity intended to provide for a larger segment of the population than the average neighborhood area. The district intended for cluster application along major streets and highways, although uses within this district should be operated in such a manner as to be compatible with surrounding residential uses. This district is not intended for residential and commercial use. Comparatively, on the R1 residential district, intent to permits is to promote the development and area primary for single-family dwellings, intended that all other uses will be installed, operated, and maintained in a manner so as to either complement or at least be of minimum disruption to such single-family uses. Any uses not in accordance with the intent and purpose of this district stipulation provisions and permitted uses to set forth section shall be deemed a nuisance. Staff review. In reviewing the rezoning application for recommendations, staff considers the state statutes, county ordinances, zoning, the current proposed land use, the comprehensive plan, and adjacent zoning. And public comments of the land use, which we have none at this point. This specific lots fall within a multifunctional corridor on the comprehensive plan. There are factors weighing on both sides based on the definition of multifunction corridor. Multifunction corridor denotes areas of the county that are located adjacent to the primary transportation route and where a mixed land use is desirable based upon specific location characteristics of land. This property is not adjacent to the primary transportation route. It also is designed for that can be seen from the route, and this is not being able to be seen from the highway. Legal ads were published on 5/30 of 2023 in the Payson Roundup and the Silver Belt, respectively. So what I wanted to point out is that this is one lot back. So the Strawberry Inn is literally right in front of it. This is up on Sumarak, which kind of goes around that curve. And so it does not meet the requirements of a multifunctional corridor, even though on the master plan, it is a multifunction corridor. There's also, if you'll see right below that pink area, that orangish color is the commercial part of it. And then that goes to the residential is that pink. But on the one lots, just to the side of or in front of these lots are also residential, but they were placed in there before we had zoning. So those were back in the 60s and 70s that those went in. So at this point, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I believe Mr. Lafano is in the Payson office, or the Tommy Martin office, and I'd be more happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Randy. Supervisor Humphrey, questions or comments?
Being this is out of my district, I'm gonna pass.
Supervisor Christian.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Randy. I don't see any questions that I need to ask. Pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Sure.
And I don't have any either right now, Randy, so I'm good. So with that, I'll open up a public meeting. And in Payson, we have a gentleman do you want to speak to this?
Good, thanks. He says he is good.
He's okay?
Yep.
Okay. Nothing on YouTube, is there? And there's no one here. So with that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adopt ordinance number 2023-06.
With no complaints, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. On to B, 3B, public hearing, information, discussion, action to adopt ordinance number 2023-07, which authorizes an amendment to the Gila County zoning map for unincorporated areas for Gila County by changing the zoning for assessor's parcel number 301-10-010G located at 7 925 West Sumac Drive, Strawberry, Arizona, to residential 1, district density 10, R1 to D10. Randy,
Am I allowed to say ditto?
you can say what you can.
The only thing I forgot to bring up was that the Planning and Zoning Board did vote on these two, and both were passed unanimously for approval.
Okay.
So other than that, it is the exact next door lot. There is a slight change in dates, but other than that, same thing happened.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions or comments?
Good information.
Supervisor Humphrey, any questions, comment?
No questions, comments.
Supervisor Christian?
No, sir.
And neither do I. So with that, I'll open up the public hearing. We're good in Payson?
We are good.
Okay, thank you. We're good here as well. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
With that information and no complaints, Mr. Chair, I will move to adopt ordinance number 2023-07.
I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Randy, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to C, information, discussion, action to consider a liquor license application, county number LL-23-11, submitted by Jody Harwood for a new Series 007 beer and wine bar liquor license at the lodge at 5600 located in Pine, and issue a recommendation to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control whether the license should be granted. And Sam, this one's yours.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. As stated, this is a Series 7 beer and wine bar liquor license application located at the lodge at 5600 in Pine. The county does have an internal review process whereby the treasurer reviews the application and ensures the applicant is current on property tax payments for all properties owned in Gila County. The Health and Building Permitting Department both review the application, and to date, there have been no issues or oppositions reported for the lodge at 5600. The clerk of the board's office recommends to proceed with the public hearing, and I can take any questions.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions? Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions.
Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, Sam. I'm very familiar with the property. I don't see any issues, so thank you.
And I don't have any questions either, so. With that, I'll open it up to a public meeting. Is there anyone in Payson?
There's none.
Okay, we're good here as well. I'll close the public meeting or hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve the liquor license application submitted by Jody Harwood for the lodge at 5600.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Sam. On to 4, regular agenda items. 4A, I'll need a motion to adjourn as the Gila County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Gila County Library District Board of Directors.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Information, discussion, action to adopt the fiscal year 23-24 tentative budget for the Gila County Library District, and we have Elaine. Good morning, Elaine.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Klein, supervisors. Every year, the Library District comes before the Library District Board of Directors to adopt a tentative budget for our next fiscal year. This budget is used to support the 8 libraries in Gila County, which include funds for day-to-day operations, IT connectivity, and equipment, just to name a few. After reviewing this budget for fiscal year 23-24, I would happily answer any questions, then ask that you adopt the tentative budget.
Thank you, Elaine. Supervisor Humphrey, questions or comments?
Elaine, are you happy with this budget?
I am.
Okay. That's all?
Well, I'll always take more, but.
Spoke too soon, Elaine. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. I have no questions.
And I don't either. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 tentative budget for the Gila County Library District in the amount of $2,485,285 as presented.
I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Now I'll need a motion to adjourn as the Gila County Library District Board of Directors and convene as the Gila County Flood Control District Board of Directors.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I will second.
Having a motion and second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Maren?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Humphrey. As you can see on the board, we are presenting the Flood Control District budget today in the amount of $248,162. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Maren. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no question.
Supervisor Christensen?
No questions, thank you.
We do this every year, and this is one that just kills me. Are we just gonna keep doing this with a flood district? I mean, tell me again what the main purpose of a flood district is, Maren.
So we have to present this to you as a separate item because the county does have the authority to levy a tax for the flood control district. Historically, we haven't chosen to. Historically, we have funded this without levying a tax on the residents, but we have to bring it to you as a separate item so that you can be the Flood Control District Board of Directors and adopt this. And it's just an annual exercise so that you're aware that if you ever chose to, you could levy such a tax.
So, Michael, I got a question for you. Since the only reason we have a flood control district is in case we want to put a tax, is there anything in statute, maybe that's a Jessica question or whatever, that we have a flood control district? Do we have to have flood control districts?
No, Chairman. You have the ability to implement the tax levy for a flood control district, but you don't have to. It's not required.
Maren, do you know how, or maybe Michael, do you know how long this flood control district's been in existence?
I do not, but I'm pretty sure we'd be able to go back and check on you for it, sir.
I'd be curious to know because I know it's been before our time. It's been there all these years we've been sitting here, and we address this every year. I don't know. I guess I'm just curious on why we still have it. I guess so.
Yeah, I'll work with Maren and Mr. Menlove and get an answer for the board and let you know.
Thank you, Michael. Supervisor Humphrey, you got anything you want to throw in there?
No, other than there could be some areas like Gila that doesn't have a lot of, well, our roads are their flood control because their HOA was abandoned. And so at one point I was talking to them to see if they were willing to put together a tax district to control their flooding, and they weren't. But by having this open door, it made it possible if that's something that particular area would care to do.
Yeah, I guess it just, I know we have a little bit of money. We've always had just a little bit of money into this district, and I believe there may be one or two people that's funded out of this pot of money. But overall, I'm just, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if we're never going to do anything with this flood district, Jessica?
Chairman, member supervisor, so I misunderstood your question. So yes, it is required by statute to have the flood control district. That way you do have the ability to address certain issues like flooding, perhaps needing to take on properties through eminent domain so that you can control that. We've had situations like that in the past. However, the tax levy, that is up to your discretion.
Okay. So by statute, we have to have this district?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do it again next year. Thank you, Maren. I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 tentative budget for the Gila County Flood Control District in the amount of $248,162 as presented.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And thank you, Maren. I entertain a motion to adjourn as Gila County Flood Control District Board of Directors and convene as a street lighting improvement districts per the fiscal year 24 budget schedules entitled Street Lighting Improvement Districts. Maren, you're it again.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Humphrey. Today we have for you the 7 street lighting improvement districts. These are taxes that are collected by the Gila County Treasurer and are then used to pay the APS bills to provide street lighting in these districts.
Thank you, Mayor. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions. The only thing is also too, and in some of my public meetings, people have talked about some of these lights being out. And so if SO or anybody sees any of these lights out, the power company is real responsive about fixing them, you know, if they have out. So I know you guys don't like to run around in the dark, Sheriff, so if you notice some out, if you'll let me know or let the power company know. They've been really great about getting some of these lights repaired or lights placed.
And the power company has added on their website that you can just report that number. It's a yellow strip with black digits on it. You can go on their website and enter that number, and they will address it. You don't even have to call them anymore.
Right. Cool. And yeah, they're real responsive in helping keeping that lit.
Good. Supervisor Christensen.
Thanks. No, I have nothing.
And neither do I, so I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 tentative budget for the following Gila County Street Lighting Improvement Districts, also known as SLID. Pine Slid, $2,075. Apache Hills Slid, $3,750. Upper Glendale / Central Heights, $3,220. East Verde Park Slid, $5,221. Miami Gardens Slid, $3,407. Midland / Central Heights Slid, $16,378. Claypool Lower Miami Slid, $25,487 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Mayor, and I'll need a motion to adjourn as the Gila County Street Lighting Improvement Districts Board of Directors and reconvene as Gila County Board of Supervisors.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 All right. Aye, motion carries. On to D, information, discussion, action to adopt the fiscal year 23-24 Gila County tentative budget, authorize the publication of the summary budget, and set the public hearing for July 18th, 2023 to adopt the final 23-24 Gila County budget. Marin?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Humphrey. We've provided a PowerPoint for you here, but we also recognize that you've been sitting here for over an hour and a half, so I will do my best to keep this brief today. The PowerPoint is available to our constituents on our website, which is part of the reason why there are repeat slides from when we initially discussed the budget earlier this year. We just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of our economic considerations, including our expenditure limitation, the competitive marketplace, and supply chain and procurement issues. The 2024 investment priorities that have come to us from the Board of Supervisors and Gila County's department heads and other elected officials include our employees, technology, infrastructure and buildings, vehicles, and public safety. We also have our priorities including public service levels, maintaining the property tax rate at $4.19, and delivering a balanced budget in addition to the expenditure limitation. This resources and limitations slide is just a repeat from the earlier conversation. We did update this number here for the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat, and I think it doesn't show up as well on the television, it shows better on the screen. That number was $1 million the last time we met. It did increase to $3 million based on a state appropriation. In the fiscal 2024, we have net assessed values of properties at $636,720,730. which with your $4.19 tax rate will render a primary property tax levy of $26,678,599. Earlier, you heard from the Auditor General's office. They talked to you about our 2022 financial statements. An area that we in finance look at that the auditor doesn't necessarily reflect in their reporting is how your budgeted priorities appear in the financial statements. So when you look at the fiscal year 2022 financial statement priorities, you can see that just over half of your total expenditures are for public safety and courts. 29% are for health, welfare, education, constituent services, culture, and recreation. 11% goes to sanitation, highway, streets, and landfill. 3% goes to debt service, and about 7% goes to administration. By comparison, if you were running like a nonprofit organization, having a 7% administrative cost would be a really excellent ratio for you to be able to refer to. So in our 2024 budget, we have a variety of revenue sources. 25% of the revenue sources are made up of the primary property tax levy. 17% come from grants, 27% from special revenue. We have 4% from PILT, which is federal payments in lieu of taxes because of the amount of federal land in our county. We have about 4% in state shared sales tax, another 4% in county excise tax, 2% in vehicle license tax, and all other sources combined make up the remaining 8% of your revenue. You saw the 2022 priorities based on expenditure areas. For 2024, we do have about 42% going to general fund, 22% for grants and restricted funds, 8% is for LATCF, that is the Local Area and Tribal Consistency Fund. It was previously part of PILT, and then Congress changed it around a little bit. 2% from the American Rescue Plan Act, 14% for capital projects, 1% for debt service, and then 11% for future year reserves. And then we look a little more closely at the general fund to see where your expenditures line out. And we do have courts and public safety in two separate sectors here, but they are still a little over 50% of the total budget. For the general fund, health and emergency management comes in at 3%, general government at 22%. Facilities and fleet were restructured slightly for 2024 to be part of general fund. That makes up about 3% of the total budget, as does debt service. Access and Altex are your indigent care costs. Those are state mandated and are about 6% of total general fund. Capital is about 10% of total general fund, and community development is about 2%. So for 2024, the proposed upper limit of expenditures, which is the purpose of today's meeting, is $151,622,946, which compares to prior years as listed here. Last year's proposed upper limit of expenditures was $124,423,067. So that shows you about a $27 million increase. So we've provided some information here that's easier to see if you're just looking at your own screen, but this does show where those new expenditures are, so you can see where the $27 million additions came from. Starting in the upper left, 2.78 million is for federal earmarks that we've applied for, so we have to include them in the budget. We will know in September or October whether those funds will be truly available to us. Your next sector in the upper right is for ARPA projects, which is the remaining $3.4 million of ARPA funds that we are working on projects for, and that does include $325,000 for the restrooms at the fairgrounds. That may happen in '23 or may happen in '24, so we've budgeted it there. So either way, you are covered. We have in the lower right, infrastructure projects of 11.6 million. That includes $5.5 million in roads projects, the ongoing landfill expansion, the ongoing Tonto Bridge project with our cost share, and then there is a cost share related to the 512 road if we receive the federal earmark for that project. Finally, in the lower left quadrant, we have our additional capital needs, which are primarily for 2024 made up of public safety requests and the vehicle replacement plan. And that primarily has to do with the way the supply chain currently works and the ability for our various departments and organizations to actually get the things that they need. We are anticipating a dramatic improvement in that in 2024 and have budgeted accordingly. So this slide is the summary schedule that will be published for the public. It shows in very small print your total budget for last year, where we are in comparison to that, your total budget and upper expenditure limitation for 2024, and the Economic Estimates Commission expenditure limitation, which for 2024 is $50,068,759 compared to 2023's expenditure limitation of $46,330,256. We have budgeted for the that entire increase. So with that, that is our total presentation today about the upper expenditure limitation for 2024. And we do anticipate being back before you on July 11th to talk about salaries for 2024. So that will be a separate agenda item that we bring to you in just a couple weeks.
Aaron, thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I thank you for that. And all the listeners, I just like them to know that although our budget keeps going up, that the Board of Supervisors have not raised the property taxes. I mean, the taxes is still 4.19, and it has been, and so if your taxes have gone up, it's because the assessor has assessed your property more or something of that nature. And a lot of the increase in our budget is for infrastructure, as to which we've received grants for, which is benefiting the people a lot, like the bridge and some of the things that we've been able to do with some of our grant money. Now that we're caught up on our audits, we're able to put in for a lot of those grants, whereas before we couldn't. And so all of that has to be accounted for. So that's a large increase in our budget. And so thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mayor. And I had a good conversation with you yesterday. Answered all my questions. I really don't have any more questions. I'm glad we're going to talk about employees and raises and stuff coming up soon. Yes. So I have no questions. Thank you.
Great.
Good job, Marin. I just want to tag on to something Supervisor Humphrey said is in the last, well, we're towards the end of our second term, but in all this time, we've done a lot. From a county standpoint, we've done an awful lot. And I'm pretty proud of the fact we've been able to hold to that 4.1%. So, and thank you for everything you do.
And thank you to all the department heads and all the elected officials who participated in the budget process. It's really amazing to see how that teamwork makes this process better and better every year.
So with that, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 Gila County tentative budget in the amount of $151,622,946. Authorize the publication of the summary budget and set the public hearing date for July 18th, 2023 to adopt the final fiscal year 2023-2024 Gila County budget.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. On to E, information, discussion, action to authorize the Gila County Finance Department to accept an appropriation disbursement from the state of Arizona for deputy and detention retention funds and disperse to eligible Gila County Sheriff's Office employees in the amount of $1,250 before taxes as defined by Arizona Department of Administration Agreement Number DBFFY23L22CH31304 with Gila County. Marin, you heard it again.
So this is the next installation from the Department of Administration. These are funds that were reallocated at the state level from Homeland Security. Our staff, eligible staff in the Sheriff's Department, which are line level deputies and detention officers, received $3,750 on their January 20th, 2023 paycheck. They received an additional $1,250 on May 12th. And assuming this item gets approved today, we will be able to put this in their paychecks on Friday.
Thank you, Marin. Supervisor Humphrey?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Christensen?
No questions, thanks.
I don't have any either, so with that, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the acceptance and disbursement of the state of Arizona deputy and detention retention funds in the amount of $1,250 as presented.
I will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. On to F, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement of requests for sealed bid proposals number 060623, annual newspaper publishing and printing contract to solicit bids from a qualified firm for an annual contract for all advertising, publications, and printing required to be done or made by all departments and elected offices of Gila County government for the period of July 1st, 23 through June 30th, 24. Marin, this is your last one.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Humphrey, this is our annual newspaper contract. We go out to bid each year for this, and we look forward to being able to take this one out. We are really thankful to the clerk of the board's office for their assistance with this. They're instrumental in this and the other items we've presented today, making sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. So we appreciate that teamwork.
Thank you, Marin. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions other than it's okay that it goes out to bid, but even some of the things have to be done in a local paper, no matter who gets the bid. And so, anyway, that's the only comment I have.
Supervisor Christensen?
Thanks, Mayor. No questions.
I don't have any either, so with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to authorize the advertisement of request. Advertisement of request for sealed bid proposals number 060623.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Marin.
Thank you.
On to G, information, discussion, action, authorizing the board chairman to electronically sign the Drug, Gang, and Violent Crime Control Grant Agreement 24, award grant number DC-24-004, between the Gila County Sheriff's Office and the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission in the amount of $331,654 to provide continued funding for the period of July 1st, 23 to June 30th, 24, and authorize the signature on the certificates and assurances. Travis, good morning. Barely, but it's still good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On behalf of Sheriff Shepard, the Sheriff's Office submitted this grant earlier in the year, and in May we were awarded $331,654 as part of our ongoing grant with the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. It's extremely important that we apply and get this grant because that gives us funding to cover salaries and benefits for our detectives throughout the county to go out here and enforce the laws dealing with drugs gang and violent crimes, which we've seen a huge increase in. So, as a conclusion to that, we're, on behalf of the sheriff, we're recommending that the board approve the grant agreement between the sheriff's office and the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission in the amount of $331,654 for the fiscal year 2024.
Thank you, Travis. Supervisor Humphrey?
No questions, Mr.
Supervisor Christensen?
No questions, thanks.
How many folks you got on there now? What's your number?
3.
Yeah. So all this time I watch what these guys do and their seizures and their work and everything, and it's amazing with 3 people. It's just absolutely amazing. So one of these days, Michael, me and you need to have a discussion.
Anytime, sir.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the FY 2024 Arizona Criminal Justice Drug Gang and Violent Crime Control Grant Agreement Number DC-24-004 in the amount of $331,654 and authorize the chairman's signature on the certifications and assurances as presented.
And I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Travis. Be careful.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
On to H, information discussion, action to approve a fiscal year 24 Arizona 911 program, grant agreement number AD0A-AZ911-24-04 between the Arizona Department of Administration and the Gila County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $198,807 for the performance period of July 1st, 23 through June 30th, 24. Oh, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm stepping
Yep.
in. She's at training
Good
this
morning.
week. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. We're here to ask for approval of the 911 grant program that we have with the Arizona Department of Administration for this next fiscal year. The grant amount given to the county is $198,807, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions.
Supervisor Christian?
No questions, thank you, Sarah.
And neither do I, so. That entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the fiscal year 2024 Arizona 911 program grant agreement ADOA-AZ911-24-04 in the amount of $198,807 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. On to I, information discussion action to approve the fiscal year 24 intergovernmental agreement between the town of Payson and Gila County for centralized management of 911 grant funds for the performance period of July 1st, 23 and June 30th, 24. Sarah?
Yeah, Chairman, members of the board. So this is a follow-up to the grant agreement you guys just approved. The Department of Administration wants one point of contact. We have 2 PSAPs in Gila County, the Gila County Sheriff's Office and Payson PD. So this intergovernmental agreement allows us to take in the funds from the Department of Administration and then get them to the town of Payson for their 911 system. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Supervisor Humphrey?
No questions.
Supervisor Christensen?
No questions, thanks.
Sarah, thank you. That I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 intergovernmental agreement with the town of Payson for centralized management of 911 grant fund as presented.
I will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to J, information discussion action to approve amendment number 1 to a memorandum of understanding between the Arizona Community Action Association, DBA, Wildfire, and Gila County to increase the funding by $105,000 for a total funding amount of $233,400 and extend the termination date to May 31st, 24. Kylie.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
This is just a request that we put in for an additional funding and an extension of our contract in order to continue to provide dental services in conjunction with the health department to our folks that qualify income-wise.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey?
Thank you.
Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you. Is it Kaylee or Kylie?
Kaylee.
Kaylee,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
And neither do I. Thank you so much. That I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve amendment number 1 to the memorandum of understanding with the Arizona Community Action Program, doing business as the Wildfire in the amount of $105,000 as presented.
I'll second it.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. On to K. Information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 1 to funding agreement number 204-23 between the Arizona Department of Housing and the Gila County Community Services Department Housing Services to provide Southwest Gas Cooperation Weatherization Assistance Program funding in the amount of $43,900 that will be used to provide weatherization services to eligible citizens residing in Gila County for the period of January 1st, 23 to December 31st, 23.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this was also a request for some more funding, but not a request to extend the contract. And this should provide weatherization services in conjunction with the Department of Housing and Southwest Gas for approximately 19 more citizens.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Supervisor Christensen.
No questions, thank you.
I'm good. Good job.
Thank you.
That I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve amendment number 1 to funding agreement number 204-23 with the Arizona Department of Housing in the amount of $43,900 as presented.
I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you so much. On to L. Information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 1 to contract number 121922 with North Star Transport LLC in the amount of $350,000 for a total contract amount of $700,000 and to extend the contract to August 31st, 2023. And we have Melanie instead of Homer.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Recycling and Landfill Management requests to amend North Star contract originally approved on March 7, 2023, to transport waste from Russell Gulch Landfill and Globe to the Buckhead Mesa Landfill in Payson during construction of Landfill Cell 3A at the Russell Gulch Landfill. At the time of the initial contract, the construction of Landfill Cell 3A was anticipated to be completed by May 1st, 2023. During the excavation of the new cell, the department encountered 2 significant delays that required a redesign. One was a liner tie-in to what was thought the limit of waste. So we found some waste outside of what was thought to be the limit of waste. And a second redesign was needed when we found some water in the excavation area and a perched water table. So both redesigns required ADQ approval, which we did receive on June 8th, and construction for the new cell is currently underway. The new estimated completion date for this project is July 31st to 2023. However, the department would like to extend North Star's contract to the end of August to ensure all invoices are able to be paid even after that 31st date. One important thing I'd like to stress is that Recycling and Landfill Management is an enterprise fund, and the tonnage fees that we're collecting at the gate is enough to cover the hauling cost of Buckhead Mesa. No funding for this contract will come out of the general fund, and Recycling Landfill Management is requesting to amend North Star's contract for additional $350,000 and extend the contract through August 31st, 2023. With that, any questions?
Thank you, Melanie. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I have no questions.
Good job, Melanie. I'm good. So
Okay.
with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve amendment number 1 to contract number 121922 with North Star Transportation LLC in the amount of $350,000 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Melanie. Okay, on to 5, consent agenda action items. Does either of you have anything you want to discuss?
I have nothing I want to pull off, Mr. Chair.
I'm fine, thank you.
So I have one that I'm looking at, and I don't know if I want to pull it off or just talk about it. Is the very first one. What should I do, Jessica? Want me to pull it off?
Chairman, member supervisors, if there's going to be a discussion, then yes, you need to pull it off.
Okay, let's pull off A, because I'm confused here on A. So I'd have a motion to pull A off.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to pull consent agenda item 5A off.
I will second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Motion carries, and I guess this one's yours. So explain this to me, because I'm looking at 550,000 and.
So, good morning, Chairman, members of the board. So we received an extra year extension on some of our health disparity funding from the state. A lot of it's leftover COVID funding, so we only have one more year of it. We're doing a lot of opioid type work with it. One of the things we're trying to do right now is set up our website, like a standalone opioid website where people can order naloxone, kind of take some of the stigma away from having to come into the health department. Anything we can do to get it out there better. So we're working on tasks that are really not real specific to the health department right now, and we know with a year and the way hiring has been lately that it's complicated for us to go out and reach staff that we could bring on then have to release a year from now. So that's the reason I'll have this, and I'll have another one at the board meeting, the next one for workforce development, where these are these one-year grants where we're still getting extra money from the state because the other counties aren't spending all their money, so they've been extending this money, much like we did with the other American Rescue Plan money that you have. So they're kind of extending these because a lot of people haven't spent their money in time, and I like to kind of go to the state and get more of that, and we take our 10% indirect. There's no match, so they're just good grants to take and keep using our share to help out.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So do I have a motion to approve A? Do you want me to read it? I got a lawyer sitting on their head, so.
Chairman, you don't have to read it. The person making the motion should read.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Thank you. I move, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve consent agenda item A, which has been moved to the regular agenda, approving an amendment number 1 to contract number 072721, sub-guarantee for project management with WOWZA LLC to extend the contract term from July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 in an amount not to exceed $550,000 and add required contract language regarding certification of no forced labor.
Mr. Chair, I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you so much. Now, I'd entertain a motion to accept B through L.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 5B through 5L.
I will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Call to the public. Do we have any in Payson?
We do not.
Nothing on YouTube? How many's on YouTube today? 35. Cool. And we don't have any here in Globe, so. Moving on to 7, at any time during this meeting, pursuant to ARS 38-431.02K, members of the Board of Supervisors and the County Manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action may be taken on the information presented. Michael, you want to go first?
Chairman, members of the board, I have nothing today to share.
Thank you, Michael. Supervisor Humphrey.
Tunnel Bridge is about 50% complete as far as I understand, and it looks like we'll have all the columns in hopefully before monsoon start, so that'll be a good thing. And no, it was on the radio Monday night, had a couple call-ins. That was That was a good thing, because I haven't had any call-in, so it's nice to have a couple people call in. So you two out there on YouTube, if you want to call in on some of those radio stations, feel free, and ask questions or give comments, appreciated. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Humphrey. Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, Chairman. Last Friday, the 9th, if that was last Friday. No, it's more than that. But anyway, we had the Game and Fish Commission meeting that was in the PCM building. And IT did an outstanding job of preparing that place for them. And they came in, it's literally like the landing of the Marines when they set that up. They had more than half a dozen people just putting in all of their equipment, all of their cameras, all of their computers, hookups, and it turned out to be a really great meeting. They were very comfortable there. And it just shows that that room is not just for one purpose. It's a multi-purpose room, and it served really well in that case. They were very happy. Last Tuesday morning, went to the Veterans Coffee Time, always a good deal. And Flag Day was the 14th. So attended Flag Day ceremony at the Veterans Memorial at Green Valley Park. And then also there's been a considerable amount of discussion about a particular flagpole in Payson at the Western Village that was rusty and ragged. So a lot of people got together and cleaned that up. And we had a brand new 20 by 30 foot flag put up. It's really impressive. It's the biggest flag and the highest pole in town right now. Yesterday was on KMOG, and as always, that went very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Christensen. I'm short and sweet. I had a meeting with the Payson mayor and Star Valley mayor about a week or so ago. Went really well. Good discussions. It's cut short because I had another deal to be in, but so I look forward to picking that up and going again. But basically, they're wanting to work on the pool for Payson and whatnot. So, did that jog anything else for you guys? We good?
Good, Mr. Chair.
All right. So, with that, we'll move on to 8 executive session items. 8A, information discussion action to vote to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 to engage in discussions or consultation for legal advice with the Board of Supervisors attorneys regarding the legal course of action available to the board for the possible discipline of an elected official. And I need a motion to go into executive session. Michael,
Chairman, I've been advised by county attorney to make that motion for the board, if I may.
You're special.
The recommendation.
Okay, go ahead.
For the record, county administration would recommend the board go into executive session to engage in discussions or consultation for legal advice with the Board of Supervisors attorney regarding the legal courses of action available to the board for the possible discipline of an elected official.
Thank you, Michael. Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion that the Board of Supervisors adjourn to executive session.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. We'll see you guys all back here after a bit. Nothing to discuss on the executive session, so at this time, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.